and then we'd go back and reconnect everything, and it's really simple to do. With the back here, we're just going to feed the housing back in there, and then all we have to do to get it back into alignment is start turning the crank so that the chain will get back to where it's supposed to be, and that'll cause now tension in there. I can't get it apart, so now it's a sealed product again with oil inside of it. So that'll help keep moisture out and from accumulating and or rusting whilst it sits during the winter. By actually moving that chain around and going through the gears once we get them all reconnected, by shifting those gears, we're actually moving the cable back and forth in there, and it's going to help distribute the oil evenly throughout the inner of the housing. So that's all we're looking to achieve, get all that oil in there, keep the moisture out, and we've got a sealed product at that time. So wipe a little of the tri-flow off of me here. Since we're talking about oils, one of the things I want to mention is any aerosol oils. You noticed every oil that I used is actually hand applicated or has a dripper type spout to it. Aerosol oils, WD-40, it sprays all over the bike. And the thing about oils is they attract dirt and debris. So we don't want to attract all that dirt. It's corrosive. It causes the gears not to mesh. But on a particular bike like a mountain bike, it does have disc brakes on it. And if we get oil on that disc brake or into the brake pads themselves, we won't have a very good operating system. We won't be able to stop very well with oil on our brake pads. So in the bike industry, WD-40 or any aerosol type penetrating oils are a big no-no. So try not to use them. There's oils specifically designed for drivetrain, for cables, at bike shops, and we'd be happy to point you in the right direction if you have any questions. But stay away from WD-40 if you can. So once we've got the bike cleaned, dried, we've got all of the moisture contact points lubricated, the next thing we want to talk about is just protecting the bike itself. So there are some products, basically waxes and protectants that just provide a nice coating over the bike to keep dust and moisture out. One of those products that we use quite often in the shop is this Maxima Racing high gloss coating. It smells like cherries. It's probably the second best thing about it. The first best thing about it is that it works really well. It's just a high gloss wax protectant that we put all over the bike to keep moisture out. And again, all we're going to do is take one of our clean rags. We're going to take this product and we're going to spray it onto the rag. Avoid spraying it onto the bike so that we can get it in places that we want it to be. We're just going to go through the bike and spread it around any little places where dirt might have resided, and we're just going to kind of polish the bike. You can even put it on the bike stanchions, anywhere on here. It's just going to protect and put a nice sealed layer all over the bike. You can use this on the tires, put it anywhere except if you have a mountain bike. Just stay away from the brake pads or the brake rotors themselves. You just want to stay away from those. If you do get some on there, a little bit of rubbing alcohol placed on a separate rag, and just clean it off, and it'll dry. It should work pretty good. So just put a nice layer of protectant over there. If you don't have a bike store near you where you can get access to a product like the Maxim, Pledge works pretty good. It's just a nice non-corrosive waxing aerosol, again sprayed to the rag, and you can apply it pretty much everywhere on the bike. It actually gives a nice look, nice glossy look to the tires as well. So it should keep you lasting all winter. So once we've got the bike cleaned, dried, lubed, and now We've put protectant all over the bike to kind of seal it and give it a moisture barrier. The next thing we want to talk about is storing the bike. What do we do with this thing now that we've got it all ready to be put away? We want to put it away. If you have access to some hooks or some way to get the bike up off the ground during the winter, that would be the ideal situation. Getting the bike off the ground keeps weight off of the tires and the tubes, and regardless of how much you try or what kind of tubes you have or sealant product in your tubes, you're going to lose air throughout the month, much less a couple of months. So your tires are going to eventually go flat no matter what you do to them. It's the materials used in the tubes, and there is some gas exchange there. So what happens is we leave it for a couple of months, the air leaves the tires and the tubes, and then the tire's going to sit on the ground, and it's basically going to squash and cause a crease in your tire and in the tube itself. So if it sits for too long in that situation, that crease might not be able to come out of your tire. You might wind up replacing your tires. Tires start out at about $25. So a set of them can be expensive when you get your bike out and you want to go ride. And now you've got to spend some money just replacing tires at that point. So if you can hang it, that will keep those tires off the ground and you won't develop those creases. You might still lose air, or most likely you will lose air, but at least you're not creasing your tires at that point, and won't have the expense of maybe replacing them when it comes time for spring. If you don't have access to hooks or hanging the bike, there's a couple things you can do. The second most ideal situation would be to turn the bike upside down. So you can do that real quick. It's pretty simple to do. At least on a mountain bike it's simple to do. Your road bikes have narrower handlebars and they'll tip over real easy. But mountain bikes have pretty wide handlebars. We've got a nice steady footprint, and it's solid even if you bump into it. But it does take up some space. So if you're trying to save space, again, the hooks might be the best way to go to get them up off the ground. But this also keeps your tires up off the ground and avoids the scenario of your tires losing air and creasing those tires and making them unviable for your spring when you're ready to go out there and ride again. So this way you won't have to replace them, but you will probably lose some air. The third option is if you don't have the space to turn them upside down, or you've got a bike rack in your garage and you're always parking your bike there and that's what you're going to do, is to park it in that bike rack on the ground. Again, it does take up a little bit of space, but that's probably space that you're used to losing if you do have a bike rack. But the biggest problem with this is those tires sitting on the ground. When they do decide to lose air, your weight of the bike is going to compress. You're going to cause creases in your tires. If you do have to do this, then check your air once a month. Put a little bit of air in it to keep them from deflating and causing creases. Another thing you can do is put some rags underneath the tires to give it some support, so that when you do lose air, if you lose track of it for a month or two, it'll help cushion it and maybe not be so hard on the tires themselves. And also, if anybody's got hardwood floors, you're keeping your bike in the house, put some rags underneath it if it's going to be stationary for more than a couple weeks. The tires will actually leach out into the floor and you'll have black stains, and it's pretty much impossible to remove those stains from the rubber material leaching out into the floors. So put some rags under it if this is the way you're going to set your bike up for the winter. The very last thing is put some type of covering over your bike. A fitted sheet, an old old flannel sheet that you have lying around. Cover them up. It'll keep the moisture off. It'll keep the dust off. The dust, believe it or not, is corrosive and will cause some deterioration. It'll keep the moisture off, so it'll help inhibit rust accumulation in the bike. There are pre-made consumer bike covers that you can actually purchase. They start about 20 bucks, but they're kind of heavy, they're really thick. If you want to go with that route, great. If not, a fitted sheet, some kind of cotton material, flannel, works just as well if you got that laying around the house. So, other than that, I think we've covered it. Follow a few of these rules. Come into Bob's if you have any questions. We'd be happy to help you out. Other than that, that should keep you going. Keep your bike serviceable and ready for the winter. And that way, once spring arrives, you should be able to air up the tires, get things rolling, and you'll be ready for spring once it hits.